If I had to describe the Powells in one word, it would probably be gracious.
Generous.
Amazing.
Energetic.
Impactful.
A quiet man. Very quiet.
She was extremely talented and worked with him daily on building a company and building a community.
They were creative, disciplined, focused, driven, and they were a fantastic, cohesive, symbiotic couple.
You want me to describe Jeannette Powell in one word? You have asked the impossible. There is no one word. Jeannette was such an amalgam of so many beautiful, fabulous words. But the one that really stands out for me most of all, that I treasure and I see her, and I see Jeannette and her graciousness.
So many memories between us, it's hard to encapsulate them into one word. I loved them.
I arrived at Pacific in 1995. Bob had been recommended for an honorary degree, and that hadn't been yet communicated to him. I told him of the honor that the faculty and the board wished to bestow on him in the 1996 commencement. I never realized how important that was to him until I visited his home and his office one day, and I saw the office. He had a picture of me hooding him for the honorary degree. Went to his home that same occasion, and there's the same picture on the mantle. I learned the stories about his life. This man who at 19 moved to Sacramento from the Bay Area. He was drywalling at UC Davis, and UC Davis had just gone coeducational, and they had an influx of women coming, and they asked Bob if he could help them with the housing, and he created the first housing for women at UC Davis, and did that basically by simply saying, I can do it.
What I love and remember most about Jeannette is just her kind of dogged determination, her focus, her passion for perfection. She was a self-taught person, and whatever she was focused on at the moment, no one was going to stop her. I loved her passion for just about everything from art and architecture and design and landscape. She grew up in Menlo Park. Her father was a groundskeeper for an estate. So she probably acquired that interest in landscaping back when she was a little girl. She and Bob met at an early age. He said to her, he was determined that he was going to be successful, he was going to make a lot of money, and whatever he did, he was going to do it in a big way. They worked to create a business that is known today, and I think still in Sacramento, a Powell developed property is known to be high quality and beautiful.
He was born in Redwood City, California, went to Sequoia High School, met his wife Jeannette there. They did meet roller skating, which is kind of a kick. They enjoyed life together.
We met in Sacramento. I was a small real estate broker, and as we got to know each other socially, we both had higher horizons than our circumstances at that time. He went into the real estate development and building. He was inspired to do all of this because he was that type of person. He was asked to join the YPO, that's the Young Presidents Organization. By this time when Bob joined it, he had already built 4,000 apartments, a couple shopping centers, maybe 6,000 residences, and did a lot of big things as a very young fellow.
He began really the flourishing of the development company with the construction of many apartment projects for off-campus housing at UCD. He found he needed somebody to advertise the availability of these apartments. I got involved in preparing the ads to go into the student newspaper on the UC Davis campus. They were both about 30 years old at this point, full of energy and ideas.
Everything about Jeannette was elegance, graciousness, courtesy, but so loving of life and people. One of my fondest memories was sitting with her in Board of Regent meetings, and we'd be working on designs for the new alumni house, this house that we're sitting in here. And the initial drawings that we got were very institutional. They just really looked static, just like an ordinary office building anywhere. And they just weren't getting it. So I turned to Jeannette and I said, Jeannette, do you think you could help them understand what I'm trying to say? And she launched into this beautiful discussion of design and what it means and how it relates to the people in the building. And just in so few words, but with her manner and her description, they got it. And that, for me, captured Jeannette.
I worked for Bob from 1970 to 1999 as an officer of his building company. And then after that, we worked on projects together as partners. His father was an auto mechanic. He respected his father, always talked about his father teaching him things, how to go to the bank, open an account. Loved his father dearly. He never had expectations of anybody giving him anything, and everything he got, he earned. But he wanted to and did share that wealth that he was able to achieve with others in his own ways. I wasn't the only one that he took under his wing, so to speak, at an early age, and had them work for him and learn the business from him. He just liked to do that.
I came to work for Mr. Powell in 2000, June of 2000. Jacob was 3 months old at the time. Much of what I experienced was that his giving was very personalized. Mr. Powell was very aware that childcare was expensive. As Jacob got into preschool and elementary school, I was presented with the offer of Mr. Powell paying for those costs throughout the year, and then those costs being deducted from my year-end bonus. So the end of the year came, and I was presented with my bonus check, and there was no deduction from it for the childcare. And I thought the bookkeeper had made a mistake, but she quickly advised me that that was not an error. It was something Mr. Powell had chosen to gift me, which he did for several years. Just another example of generosity. Just personally, they touched so many lives. It just seemed like everywhere they went, they inspired people around them to be a better version of themselves, to stand a little taller, to strive a little harder. And it just seemed to come naturally to them.
Bob Powell came from not a lot, came out of high school and started working. His only college education is at a junior college to take accounting, so he knew how to do the books to run his business. And renovated a fourplex in the Mid-Peninsula, I'm gonna say Palo Alto, at the age of 18 or 19. I mean, that's entrepreneurial.
I started as a bookkeeper for Bob Powell in 1993, and 21 plus years later, I ended as Jeannette Powell's personal assistant. They were a joy and a challenge to work for in the best way. He was very disciplined. He was exceptionally demanding, but fair. Every decision was extremely well thought, but you didn't know it. You just, as you reflect back, you thought, understand. It was like a chess game all the time. And of course, he was the chess master.
Jeannette and Bob together were a wonderful team. Jeannette was a very creative person, an excellent interior designer, and an artist herself. Bob and Jeannette together went over plans again and again for any project that they built. And Jeannette was also very talented with landscaping.
He was the builder and owner of Pavilions Shopping Center, Birdcage Shopping Center, and then he was the master developer of two of the major areas of Sacramento, the Campus Common area and the Gold River area off of Sunrise Boulevard, each with probably 1,000 to 2,000 homes.
Gold River is an outstanding example of his work. And then the Gold River Shopping Center itself, where there's just a wonderful mixture of art, landscaping, architecture, and great business success. the Powells' great contribution to the greater Sacramento area is their terrific sense of design, so that there became a Powell style. There are many people from the late 60s and early 70s who would comment to the effect that it was Bob Powell that brought style to Sacramento.
They had a great balance. They didn't take themselves too seriously. For all their wealth, they liked to play. They understood that they earned all of that through rolling up your sleeves, elbow grease, applying yourself, all those old-fashioned characteristics.
I graduated in '53, and we were friends shortly after that, and he heard me talk about the campus and rave about it, actually. He knew some other developers who had a relation to Pacific. So between all of this, he, little small steps at a time, eventually got more involved down here. And he loved the campus. First, they asked Bob to sit on the regents, be a regent. And he did, but he didn't really enjoy that at all. So he said, I'm going to resign, and how about appointing my wife, Jeannette? So she was a regent for a number of years.
She became an emeritus board member for life. So actually, she became a life member of the Board of Regents.
I think that Bob and Jeannette Powell's philanthropic inspiration and impetus was part of both of them coming from very humble beginnings. And as they amassed more material wealth, they had a great sense of giving back.
We started practicing every month. What did he want to do with his money? And a few small gifts were made. The first large gift to Pacific was for the Art Center, $1.5 million. It's important to note it was a matching fund, because Bob really believed in matching funds. He wanted people to develop themselves as well as just receive the gift. Bob invested in the higher education because he knew how important it was. He worked night and day to build his fortune, and he wanted to make it a little easier for others to have that education that he knew they needed. He gave scholarship money to tenants' children to go through college, and he didn't take any tax deduction. He just paid their way through college. He believed education was important.
Bob and Jeannette Powell deeply believed in the power of an education, and they wanted more people to have access to that education. It's understandable because neither one of them, their families did not have the means to send them to college. And yet they're both committed to excellence, hard work, learning, discovery, and talent, and it paid off extraordinarily well.
Many of us go back to our alma maters, and we want to give back to our alma mater and are proud and remember and nostalgic about the experiences we had there. They came at it from a very different perspective. They have this extreme success, great accomplishments, and being involved at a university later in life certainly gave them a satisfaction.
One of the early gifts that the Powells made to Pacific during my time was a $1.5 million contribution to renovate space that was old Stockton College buildings on the South Campus. And we came up with the idea if we could restore those structures, they would be fabulous facilities for the art department. He said, well, you come up with a plan and you let me know what we might be able to do. And I said, now with this, a naming opportunity comes. And I remember vividly him saying to me, well, you can name it, but name it for Jeannette, but make it small letters. We're not into big letters for ourselves. That tells me so much about this man. They're not into this for personal aggrandizement. They're into it because it's going to do good for someone. And of course, the Jeannette Powell Art Center is a beacon for the South Campus right now.
Part of the Bob and Jeannette Powell estate included some of the magnificent art that Jeannette Powell collected. That art has been added to our permanent art collection. We now are able to support a full-time curator who's able to not only track and properly store, but to display the magnificent art that we have from Jeannette Powell. And so our university campuses are that much more beautiful because of Jeannette and Bob Powell's impact. She had a reception at her home for university personnel, and it went from the president to art faculty to the gentleman who runs our grounds. And I would just listen to her talk with Toby Rose. She loved thinking about the flowers and the trees and the beauty of this campus as much as she did of the artwork.
I worked really closely with Jeannette on the art courtyard. We wanted to create a space that was inclusive for the students. They could work on their art projects and feel like they're in a safe place and in a beautiful place at the same time. I'll remember the Powells by how much respect that they gave me and how well they listened to everyone's opinion at the physical plant. They really cared about everyone's opinion and trusted us with her designs.
You recall that the folks in physical plant would all show up when Jeannette showed up on campus and make sure things were looking good. And also, if a tree was out of place in her view, that tree got moved by the physical plant. And she was right. It was the week of April 16, 2007, and went up to Sacramento to see Bob. And Bob didn't waste a lot of time, introduced me to John Donovan, and then said, "We just wanted you to be here to hear the plans we've made for our estate. We're going to give $5 million to Pacific now, $5 million to Stanford, and $1 million to the Museum of Modern Art in San Francisco. And then there'll be $100 million for Pacific." And I was just floored. I listened to that, and I believe I teared up. Because at that moment, I knew this was going to be a transformative gift for a school like Pacific.
He was always very interested in young people who caught his eye, who maybe came to want to work for him, but his values were, he was looking for outstanding young people to be around. And, eventually that led to the Powell Scholarship Program.
In 2009, it was decided that we would use seed money from the Powell gift to start a program that would celebrate the Powell's values: high expectations, excellence, resourcefulness, hard work. We did that by deciding that we wanted to bring in students from all different majors, students who could get into some of the top universities in the country.
Being a member of the inaugural class of Powell Scholars was life-changing, especially because I got to meet the incredible director of the program, Cynthia Wagner-Wake. The Powell Scholars had a motto, and that was to be elite without being elitist. That was driven by her knowledge of Bob and Jeannette and what they wanted to come out of the program, that they wanted to develop scholars and highly successful individuals who were the best and brightest that the university had to offer.
In 2009, when we started the program, Jeannette Powell decided she wanted a space for her Powell Scholars. She walked all over campus and found this space, and she completely transformed this space into one where the Powell Scholars could come individually and collectively and interact with one another and become the people they become. And one day she called me and she said, "Cynthia, what you need to do is you need to help these students find and follow their passions." And I said, "May I write that down?" And she said, "Why?" And I said, "Well, because I think you just came up with the motto for our program." And I think she took a lot of pride in that. She took a lot of pride in the students. I remember so many times her approaching a student, diminutive woman, she'd stick her hand out and say, "What are you going to do with your life?" She was very direct that way, but what she was saying is, "I'm investing in you." And she didn't mean in money. She meant in time and the programmatic elements that comprise the Powell Scholars Program. The Powell Scholars themselves feel when they're in here that the Powells are still with us.
The more we learned about University of Pacific, the more it became clear that UOP would be able to really well offer Jacob the classes and the experience he would need.
I knew that in college I wanted to go beyond what I thought I could do. I wanted to go somewhere where I could perform at the best of my abilities. Coming here with the other 8 of my freshman Powell Scholar peers, it's amazing. I've formed a very close group of friends. The opportunity to learn from all of these people with such different interests and just worldviews is irreplaceable.
For him to have essentially provided for Jacob's early childhood education, and then for things to come together now, for Jacob to be interested in coming to UOP, to apply for the Powell Scholarship, be chosen for it, and to be benefiting once again from Mr. Powell's generosity is really, it's just so beautiful and so overwhelming, and I'm so grateful that my path crossed with his.
Through everyone whose lives they touched, whether they were directly involved with the Powells or not, their impact is ongoing just by virtue of living in one of their homes or shopping in one of their centers or walking along the trails that they have established in Gold River. They were visionaries for future generations. People who will never know them or would never have met them are reaping the benefits of their vision.
I honor the Powells through my service to the university as an alumni board member, but as I get older and I start thinking about my own charitable giving, I think about the university and the fact that I can give money to scholarships that might be Powell matched, that may support students who may not receive a Powell scholarship but still deserve the opportunity to attend the university.
The Powell Matched Endowment is absolutely indispensable. Everyone already knows of how excellent our Powell Scholar program is at Pacific, but I think oftentimes it's forgotten how other programs, like the forensics team via the Powell Matched Endowment, are able to also excel and to get Pacific's name out there and to be great ambassadors for our university. So to be clear, right, the Powell Matched Endowment only matches the funds that we're given by other donors. And we want to express that we are incredibly thankful for the donors and of course incredibly thankful for the Powell, which multiplies the effectiveness of any benefit we get from such donations.
The day that he made the gift, I told him he's going to change lives forever at Pacific because we knew he was interested in an endowment gift. The legacy at Pacific will be the wonderful students who graduate from Pacific who go on in perpetuity because of what the Powells did in 2007.
The legacy of Bob and Jeannette Powell is a commitment to the importance of philanthropy. It's through their vision of what philanthropy can achieve that other donors will see their vision and their contribution to philanthropy. That's a huge legacy.
Many alumni feel that, well, my $100 may not go very far on its own, but if they know that their money will be matched and that once it reaches that $50,000 threshold, that suddenly the $100 from 5,000 people multiplies into this endowment that will live on forever, I don't know how it could be more powerful than that.